Oxygen. Exploring the elements, oxygen. Oxygen is essential to life on Earth. But what is this element? Learn about atoms, molecules, and how oxygen fits in the periodic table. Introduction. On July 20th, 1969, for the first time, humans stepped out of their spacecraft and walked on the surface of another heavenly body. The Apollo mission to the moon was one of the greatest scientific achievements of the 20th century. Now, in the 21st century, humans are exploring Mars, but how will they breathe upon arrival? As early as the 1960s and 1970s, the United States and the Soviet Union began studying Mars. In the 1960s, both nations sent spacecraft on flybys of Mars to take photographs and gather information from orbit. In 1965, NASA's Mariner 4 got the first close-up images of Mars, and in 1971, the Soviets sent a lander to the surface of Mars. It crashed on landing, but a second attempt survived long enough to send back 20 seconds of useful video. From 1975 to 1980, two NASA orbiters and landers, Viking 1 and Viking 2, mapped the red planet and searched for signs of life. In 1997, NASA placed the first ever surface lander and a rover Sojourner on Mars. In 2003, the European Space Agency joined the exploration of Mars, setting landers and orbiters. In 2011, NASA sent Curiosity, the largest and most sophisticated exploration rover ever to visit another planet. Curiosity explored for 2 years and found evidence that liquid water had once existed on Mars. But as exciting as these missions have been, no humans have visited Mars. That may change soon. In 2017, NASA outlined its plans to send a manned mission to the red planet by 2033. But plans for Mars are a great deal bigger than those for the moon. Scientists hope to one day colonize Mars. If people are going to live, work, and study on Mars, they're going to need something Mars doesn't have much of: oxygen. The Martian atmosphere is 96% carbon dioxide and less than 2% oxygen. Getting humans to Mars is a big challenge. Making sure that they survive when they get there is an even bigger one, and so is being able to return home. Both surviving on Mars and getting back to Earth require oxygen. NASA has a plan for that. The Mars Oxygen Institute Resource Utilization Experiment, called MOXIE for short, is NASA's plan for producing oxygen from the atmosphere on Mars. A machine could use an electric current to separate the carbon and oxygen atoms that make up the carbon dioxide in a Martian atmosphere. The oxygen would then be available for astronauts to breathe and for firing the rockets that would send them back home. The word MOXIE means bold, and it is definitely a bold plan. It's also a necessary one if humans are going to do more than make a quick visit to Mars. Humans cannot survive for more than a few minutes without oxygen. But as important as it is to us now, Earth hasn't always had oxygen, and even after humans came along, it took a long time for us to understand what oxygen was. Once we did, we found a lot of ways to put it to use, including firing rockets to get to other planets. Fighting the pieces. Take a deep breath. Now, take another. Breathe slowly. Can you taste the oxygen in the air? Probably not, because oxygen is tasteless, odorless, and colorless. You may not be able to see, taste, and touch oxygen, but it is absolutely essential to life in our world. Without it, our planet might look more like Mars or the moon, dry and lifeless. There could be no clouds, rain, or snow because they each require water, and water is nearly 90% oxygen. Hydrogen accounts for the remaining 10%. Without oxygen, there will be none of the plants and animals that you see every day, because oxygen is vital to nearly every organism on Earth. Oxygen is an element. Elements are made of only one kind of substance that cannot be broken down further. It is called atoms. The elements are the building blocks of life. If you imagine matter as a giant puzzle, the elements are the puzzle pieces, really small puzzle pieces. By fitting the pieces together in one way, you can create a grain of sand, try a different combination, and you can create a drop of water, a rock, or even a person. Scientists have discovered more than 100 elements. Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, but many of the elements were discovered only during the last few hundred years. Oxygen was officially discovered by two chemists working independently during the 18th century, Carl Skill of Sweden and Joseph Priestley of England. In 1773, Skill discovered that whenever he heated nitric acid, a colorless liquid that can cause severe burns and is often used in fertilizer, a gas was released that made nearby candles burn brighter. Skill wrote that atmosphere was composed of two gases, one that supports combustion or burning, which he called fire air, and the other that prevents it, which he called fuel air. Excuse me, but let me drink a sip of water because now I'm literally so thirsty. And if I drink water, my voice will be much easier to hear. Okay, so let's read. A year or so later in England, Priestley discovered that the gas released by heating a mixture of mercury and air also made candles burn brighter. He published his findings in 1775, 2 years before Skill, and took most of the credit for the discovery of what he called defluoridated air. Another scientist, Antoine Lavoie, gave oxygen its name and realized that it was an essential chemical element.